At 2:15 in the morning, my phone rang with the kind of sound that stops your heart. I knew before I even looked at the screen nobody calls at that hour with good news. My name is Nancy Rodriguez. I'm 68 years old, a widow, and a retired structural engineer. For 45 years, I built the bones of Chicago's skyline. I know how things stand and I know how things break, but nothing in my career prepared me for the call that would shatter my entire world. The phone's blue light cut through my dark bedroom like a knife. My hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over my reading glasses and the photo of my late husband, David. Patrick's name glowed on the screen. My son-in-law, calling at 2 a.m. Mom, you need to get to Chicago Med right now." His voice was ragged, panicked. Too panicked, my engineer's brain would later realize, like an actor who'd rehearsed the lines too many times. "Patrick, what happened? Is Sharon okay?" My heart hammered against my ribs. Sharon, my only daughter, my baby girl. "She fell, Mom, at your house, down the basement stairs. Her leg, God, there's so much blood. The paramedics said it's bad, real bad. Possible compound fracture." The basement stairs, at my house. My mind snapped to attention like a blueprint rolling out on a drafting table. Those stairs. I'd just reinforced them 6 weeks ago, replaced every third tread with pressure-treated oak, installed steel L brackets under each step. I'd tested them myself with a 250-pound sandbag. There was no way those stairs could fail. "Which step?" I asked, my voice steadier than my hands. "What's Patrick sounded thrown by the question. "Which step did she fall from?" I don't know. The third one, I think it just snapped under her. Mom, can you please just get here? She's asking for you." The third step. The one with the steel bracket I'd bolted directly into the floor joist. Something cold settled into my stomach. Not panic, analysis. But I pushed the thought away. My daughter was hurt. Questions could wait. "I'm on my way." I threw on yesterday's jeans and the first sweater I could grab. In the kitchen, I fumbled for my keys with shaking hands. The house felt too big, too empty without David. 3 years gone, and I still expected to see him at the table with his morning coffee. The drive to Chicago Med was a blur of red lights and guilt. Guilt that crushed my chest like a building collapse. Had I missed something? Had I been so confident in my engineering that I'd overlooked a flaw? Was my daughter lying broken because I'd been careless? The speedometer hit 80 on the Eisenhower Expressway. I didn't care. Please, God, please let her be okay. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and old fear. That sharp chemical scent that gets into your nose and stays there for days. I'd been here 3 years ago when David had his heart attack. The smell was the same. The fluorescent lights were the same. The feeling of the world ending was the same. I found the registration desk, gasping out my daughter's name. The nurse, young, tired, kind eyes pointed me toward Trauma Bay 4. "She's stable," the nurse said, "but she's going to need surgery." Stable. The word should have been comforting. It wasn't. I pushed through the curtain and froze. Sharon lay on the bed, her right leg elevated in a temporary splint. Her face was a canvas of purple bruises. Her lip was split. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Mom," her voice cracked. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I told you those stairs were loose." Had she? I couldn't remember. My mind was too full of the image of steel brackets and solid oak. Patrick stood by the window, his back to me. Navy suit expensive. His tie was loosened, but something about his posture felt wrong. Too composed. Too still. When he turned, his face was a mask of concern, but his eyes, there was something calculating in them that made my engineer's instinct scream. Nancy. He never called me Mom. Always Nancy, like I was a colleague instead of family. "Thank God you're here. The doctor says Sharon needs a rod and pins in her femur. The surgery alone is $30,000, and that's before physical therapy, before— I don't care what it costs." I moved to Sharon's bedside, taking her hand. It was cold. "Baby, what were you doing at my house at this hour?" Sharon's eyes flickered to Patrick, then away. I couldn't sleep. I went to get that photo album you mentioned. The one with Dad's pictures from our Florida trip. I thought looking at happy memories would help." Her hand trembled in mine. And the stairs just collapsed. I kept my voice gentle, but my mind was working, calculating stress points and load capacities. The third step. Patrick moved closer, his cologne too strong in the small space. "She said it snapped like a toothpick." Nancy, I know you've been meaning to fix up the house, but this is serious. Sharon could have died. She could be paralyzed right now. There it was, the accusation wrapped in concern. We're going to need to file a claim with your homeowner's insurance, he continued, pulling out his phone. The lawyer I spoke with, you already called a lawyer. The words came out sharper than I intended. Patrick's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just trying to be prepared, Mom. Medical bills like this can destroy a family, but if we file a liability claim against your policy, the insurance company covers everything. It's actually protecting you, too. If Sharon decided to sue... Sue? I looked at my daughter. Sharon, you wouldn't... Mom, please. Sharon's voice was thick with pain. Or something else. Patrick's just trying to help. You know how expensive this is going to be. We can't afford... She stopped, her face flushing. Can't afford. Sharon and Patrick lived in a beautiful house in Oak Park. A house I'd bought them for their wedding. $1.2 million paid in cash so they wouldn't have a mortgage payment. What couldn't they afford? I'll take care of everything, I said, squeezing Sharon's hand. Don't worry about the money. Just focus on healing. Patrick's expression shifted, a flash of something dark before the concerned son-in-law mask slid back into place. That's generous, Nancy, but we'll need to move fast. The doctor wants to operate tomorrow morning. If you could just go home and get your insurance policy, we can start the paperwork tonight. Tonight? I glanced at the clock. It was 3:30 in the morning. The sooner we file, the sooner we can get approval for the surgery, Patrick said smoothly. These things take time, and Sharon's in a lot of pain. We can't keep her waiting. Sharon moaned right on cue. Her eyes squeezed shut. I looked at her, really looked at her. My daughter. The little girl who used to bring me drawings of buildings she wanted me to design. The teenager who'd chosen engineering school because she wanted to be like me before dropping out to pursue real estate instead. When had she learned to lie to me because something in this room was a lie? I could feel it in my bones, the same way I could feel when a building's foundation was compromised. Okay, I said slowly. I'll go home and get the policy. Relief flooded Patrick's face. Sharon's grip on my hand loosened. Thank you, Mom, Sharon whispered. I knew you'd understand. I kissed her forehead, tasting salt and antiseptic. I love you, baby. I'll be back soon. As I turned to leave, Patrick touched my arm. Drive safe, Nancy. We can't have anything happen to you, too. His smile was warm. His eyes were ice. I walked down the hospital corridor in a daze. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making shadows dance on the sterile walls. My mind kept replaying the scene: Sharon's injuries, Patrick's urgency, the impossible failure of stairs I'd built with my own hands. I was so lost in thought that I didn't see the nurse until I'd collided with her. Oh, I stumbled backward. I'm so sorry I wasn't... It's okay. The nurse steadied me with firm hands. Her name tag read, Rachel Thompson, RN, head nurse. She was in her early 40s, African-American, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through me. Her grip on my arm was tight. Too tight. Are you all right, ma'am? She asked, her voice loud and professional, but her eyes were urgent, pleading. I'm fine, thank you. Her hand moved to check my pulse, fingers pressing against my wrist. The gesture was clinical routine, but I felt something else. Paper. She was pressing a folded piece of paper into my palm. Your pulse is elevated, Rachel said, her fingers closing mine around the note. That's normal after a shock like this. Make sure you take care of yourself. She squeezed my hand hard, a warning, a plea, something. I opened my mouth to ask what was happening, but she shook her head. A tiny, almost invisible movement. You should go home and rest, she said louder now. There's nothing more you can do here tonight. Your daughter is in good hands. Then she released me and walked away, her white sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. She didn't look back. I stood there for a long moment, the paper burning against my palm like a hot coal. Around me, the hospital moved in its late-night rhythm, beeping monitors, whispered conversations, the soft shuffle of tired feet. I waited until I turned the corner out of sight of the trauma bay. Then I unfolded the note. The handwriting was hurried, the letters cramped and urgent. Don't come back. They're lying. Check the basement camera. 11:47 p.m. last night. Trust me, your daughter needs help, but not the kind they're asking for. My hands started shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. Check the camera. 11:47 p.m. I'd installed a comprehensive security system in Sharon and Patrick's house 3 years ago. State-of-the-art cameras, motion sensors, the works. I'd wanted my daughter to be safe. Sharon knew about the external cameras, but she didn't know about the internal system logs. She didn't know that everything recorded to a cloud backup that I still had access to. I'd never checked them. Privacy was sacred. But this note, this warning from a stranger who had no reason to help me. I looked down at the crumpled paper in my trembling hands. Then I looked back toward Trauma Bay 4, where my daughter lay with a broken leg and a split lip. They're lying. The words echoed in my mind as I almost ran to the parking garage. My truck was where I'd left it, parked crooked across 2 spaces in my panic. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the note again. A rational part of my brain said this was crazy. Some stranger slipping me a cryptic message like something out of a spy movie. It could be a prank. It could be a mistake. But I've built my career on trusting my instincts about structural failures. And right now, every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong. That the foundation of my family had cracks I'd been too blind to see. I didn't drive home to my house. I drove to theirs. To Oak Park. To the beautiful colonial I'd bought them. To the security system I'd installed. To the truth. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Patrick's Mercedes was gone, still at the hospital with Sharon. Good. I still had the emergency key. I'd given it to myself when I set up their security system, insisted I keep one, just in case. Sharon had laughed and said I was being overprotective. Now my hands shook as I unlocked the front door. The house smelled wrong. Stale wine. Something burnt. And underneath it all, a faint chemical smell I couldn't quite place. I didn't turn on the lights. The glow from the street lamps was enough. The living room looked normal. Expensive furniture, tasteful art on the walls. Everything in its place. But as I walked through to the kitchen, I saw it. A pile of envelopes on the kitchen island. Red envelopes. Final notice. Past due. Foreclosure warning. My heart stopped. I picked up the first envelope with numb fingers. It was from First National Bank. A foreclosure warning on the house. This house. The house I'd bought them free and clear. But according to this letter, there was a second mortgage. $650,000. In default for 4 months. I opened the next envelope. A casino in Indiana. $180,000 owed. Credit card debt. $95,000. A letter from someone named Sal, handwritten, threatening. Last chance, Patrick. Pay or your family pays. I couldn't breathe. The papers scattered from my hands, drifting to the expensive marble floor like dead leaves. Sharon and Patrick were drowning in debt. Nearly $1 million. How? Why, I stumbled through the house to the basement door. The server room was down there, a small office I'd set up with the security equipment. Climate-controlled, password protected. My password. My system. The stairs creaked under my feet. Not broken, not damaged. Solid. The computer hummed to life at my touch. Blue light washed over my face as I typed in the administrator password. The system recognized me immediately. I pulled up the camera logs. My hands moved automatically, muscle memory from years of checking structural sensors and safety monitors. I scrolled back to last night, to 11:47 p.m. The file loaded. High-definition video, living room camera. I clicked play. The video showed Sharon and Patrick's living room, 11:47 p.m. The timestamp was clear in the corner. Sharon sat on the coffee table wearing pajamas. A bottle of whiskey was in her hand. She took a long drink, then another. Her hands were shaking. Patrick stood in front of her, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. In his hands, he held a baseball bat, wrapped in a white towel. I couldn't breathe. I can't do this. Sharon's voice came through the speakers, thin, terrified. Patrick, please. There has to be another way. There is no other way. Patrick's voice was sharp, cold. Nothing like the concerned son-in-law from the hospital. The loan sharks are coming, Sharon. They're going to kill me. Or worse, they're going to hurt Lily. Lily, their 6-year-old daughter staying with Patrick's parents this week. We can sell the house, Sharon sobbed. The house is already gone. It's in foreclosure. We're underwater by $300,000. Patrick moved closer, the bat resting on his shoulder. Your mother has $2.5 million. She's 68 years old. She doesn't need it all. The insurance policy will pay $500,000 for a liability claim. That saves us. That saves our daughter. But she's my mother. She's a resource. Patrick's voice rose. She bought this house. She pays for everything. She acts like we're charity cases. Well, fine. Let's use her charity. One accident, one insurance claim. We're free. Sharon was crying now, ugly, desperate sobs. She drank more whiskey. You want to be a good mother? Patrick asked, his voice softer now, manipulative. You want to protect Lily? Then do this. Your mom has insurance for exactly this reason. She won't even be hurt, just liable. And we get to keep our daughter safe. I watched my daughter sit there, broken drunk, terrified. I watched her nod. Make it fast, she whispered. Patrick positioned her leg on the ottoman. Sharon closed her eyes, took one more drink. The bat came down. The crack echoed through the speakers like a gunshot. Sharon's scream cut through my soul. I vomited into the trash can next to the desk. Violent, wrenching heaves that left me gasping. When I could finally breathe again, I looked back at the screen. The video continued. Patrick dropping the bat. Calling 911, his voice instantly panicked, concerned. The perfect performance. My daughter, my baby girl, letting him break her leg because they were desperate. No, not desperate. He was desperate. Sharon was trapped. The chemical smell I'd noticed upstairs, acetone. They'd cleaned the bat, probably burned the towel. I rewound the video, watched it again, forcing myself to see every detail. Sharon's face when Patrick mentioned Lily. Pure terror. The way she flinched when he raised the bat. The way she cried, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, after he'd done it. This wasn't a conspiracy. This was domestic abuse, financial abuse, psychological torture. Patrick had trapped my daughter in a nightmare of debt and threats, and then he'd used her to trap me. The engineer in me took over. I stopped crying. I stopped shaking. I copied the video file to a USB drive. I took photos of every debt letter in the kitchen. I documented everything. Patrick Sullivan had miscalculated. He thought he was dealing with a guilty old woman who would pay anything to make her daughter's pain go away. He didn't know he was dealing with an engineer who had spent 45 years analyzing structural failures, and I had just found the critical flaw in his plan. He'd left evidence. I drove home as the sun started to rise over Chicago. Pink light spilled across Lake Michigan, beautiful and cold. I didn't feel beautiful. I felt hollowed out. At home, I spread everything across my kitchen table. Printouts of the debt letters, screenshots of the video, a timeline I'd started to build. 4 years ago, Sharon marries Patrick. I pay for a lavish wedding, $40,000. 3 years ago, I buy them the house, $1.2 million cash. Also 3 years ago, a second mortgage appears on the house. How I check the county records on my laptop. The signature on the mortgage is Sharon's, but I pull up Sharon's real signature from the wedding contract. They don't match. Patrick forged it. 2 years ago, Patrick loses his job as a financial advisor. I didn't know this. Why didn't Sharon tell me 18 months ago casino debt starts appearing? Online gambling mostly. Patrick's accounts. 6 months ago, first foreclosure warning. 3 months ago, Sharon starts calling me more often. Just checking in, Mom. How are you feeling? You're taking your medications right. I thought she was being caring. She was being coached. 3 weeks ago, Patrick starts mentioning the house repairs. The stairs seem loose, Mom. You should really get them checked. Setting the trap. My phone buzzed. A text from Patrick: Nancy, just checking that you're okay. Sharon is worried. Do you have the insurance policy? I stared at the message. The urge to call him, to scream at him, was almost overwhelming. But I didn't, because I'd been building things long enough to know you don't demolish a structure from the outside. You find the load-bearing walls and you remove them carefully, precisely, until the whole thing comes down on its own weight. Patrick thought he was the architect of this scheme, but he'd left cracks everywhere. The forged signature, the video, the threats. I just needed to widen those cracks until the whole foundation collapsed. I picked up my phone and called the one person I trusted absolutely, James Caldwell, my lawyer, my friend, my Friday night poker buddy for 25 years. He answered on the second ring, his voice rough with sleep. Nancy, it's 5 a.m. What's wrong? Jim, I said, my voice steady now, clear. I need you to come to my house. I need you to bring a forensic accountant. And I need you to tell me how to save my daughter from her husband without sending her to prison." There was a pause. "Then I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and looked at the evidence spread across my table. The foundation of Patrick's plan laid bare. I'm Nancy Rodriguez. I'm 68 years old. I've built skyscrapers that withstand 100-mile-per-hour winds, and I'm about to bring down a man who thought he could play me for a fool." James Caldwell arrived at my door at 5:45 in the morning, carrying 2 large coffees from the 24-hour diner on Clark Street. He took one look at my face and didn't ask if I was okay. He just handed me a coffee and said, "Show me." Jim is a big man, played linebacker at Northwestern back in the 70s. Age has softened him around the middle, but his mind is still sharp as a tack. We've been friends since David introduced us at a construction site poker game in 1998. He'd handled David's estate when he died. He was the one who held me upright at the funeral when my knees gave out. If anyone could navigate this nightmare, it was Jim. I led him to the kitchen table. The evidence was still spread out like a crime scene. He set down his coffee and picked up the first document, the foreclosure notice. His reading glasses slipped down his nose as he scanned the page. I watched his expression change from concern to confusion to cold professional anger. "Nancy," his voice was low, "when did you take out a second mortgage on their house?" "I didn't." He looked up sharply. "The county records show—" "I know what they show. Look at the signature." I handed him a copy of Sharon's real signature from the wedding contract, then the signature from the mortgage documents. Even to my untrained eye, the differences were obvious. The loop on the S was wrong. The slant of the letters didn't match. Jim pulled out his phone and took photos of both signatures. "This is forgery, federal crime. If we can prove Patrick did this, there's more." I showed him the video. Jim is not an emotional man. In 25 years, I've seen him cry exactly once at David's funeral. But as he watched that bat come down on my daughter's leg, his jaw clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding. When the video ended, he sat back heavily in his chair. "Jesus Christ, Nancy. She's trapped Jim. He's got her convinced that loan sharks are going to hurt her daughter, that they're going to lose everything. He's been gaslighting her, manipulating her. She still participated in insurance fraud." Jim's voice was gentle but firm. "If we go to the police with this, Sharon could face charges too." "I know." The coffee was cold in my hands. I hadn't taken a single sip. "That's why I called you. I need to know. Is there a way to save her, to separate her from Patrick legally?" Jim was quiet for a long moment, thinking. His fingers drummed on the table, his tell when he was working through a problem. "Okay," he said finally. "Here's what we know. Patrick forged Sharon's signature on a $650,000 loan. That's wire fraud, forgery, and potentially elder abuse since he used your gift of the house as collateral." "Elder abuse," I almost laughed. "Jim, I'm 68, not 90. You're over 65 and he defrauded you through a family relationship. It qualifies." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "The self-inflicted injury is conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. But here's the thing, if Sharon was coerced, if she was under duress because of credible threats, we might be able to argue she's a victim too." The video shows her crying, refusing at first. "Exactly. And if Patrick has been financially abusing her, controlling the money, running up debts in both their names without her knowledge, that's a pattern of abuse. We'd need to prove it, though. Bank statements, credit card records, testimony from Sharon that she didn't know about the gambling debts." I thought about Sharon's face in the hospital. The way she'd looked at Patrick before answering my questions, the tremor in her voice. "She's scared of him," I said quietly. "Then we need to get her away from him, safely." Jim leaned forward. "Nancy, I'm going to be straight with you. The best-case scenario is we get Patrick arrested, charged with multiple felonies. Sharon cooperates, testifies against him, and the DA offers her immunity in exchange. But that means she has to be willing to turn on him, to admit what she did, to face the consequences. And worst case, we go to the police, they arrest both of them, and Sharon stands by Patrick. She refuses to testify. They both go to prison, and you lose your daughter completely." The words hit me like a physical blow. "There's a third option," Jim said slowly. "We could do nothing. Let them file the insurance claim. You pay out the settlement. They get their money, pay off the debts, and you walk away. And let Patrick get away with it." My voice came out harder than I intended. Let him keep manipulating my daughter. Let him keep putting her in danger. What happens when the money runs out again, Jim? What does he make her do next time? Jim nodded like he'd expected that answer. Then we need to be smart about this. We need evidence that Patrick is the primary actor. We need Sharon to see with her own eyes what kind of man she married. Because right now she's scared she's desperate, and she thinks he's her only option. I looked at the video still frozen on my laptop screen. Sharon's face twisted in pain and fear. I need to show her the truth, I said. I need her to see that he's not trying to save her. He's trying to save himself. How? I met Jim's eyes. We set a trap. We make Patrick think he's won, and then we catch him trying to hurt me. Jim's expression darkened. Nancy, that's dangerous. If he's willing to have Sharon break her own leg, then he's capable of worse. I know. My hands were steady now. The engineer in me had taken over calculating risk factors and structural loads. But I've been building things my whole life, Jim. I know how to create a controlled environment. I know how to minimize risk. You're talking about using yourself as bait. I'm talking about giving Patrick enough rope to hang himself. On camera. With witnesses. So that when Sharon sees it, she can't deny what he is anymore. Jim was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. I'm calling Robert Miller. We're going to need the police involved. And Nancy? He looked at me seriously. Once we start this, we can't stop it. Are you sure? I thought about Sharon crying in that hospital bed. About Lily, 6 years old, being used as leverage. About the life my daughter could have if she was free from Patrick's manipulation. I'm sure. At morning, I sat in a booth at Lou's Diner, 2 blocks from the hospital. The breakfast crowd was in full swing, construction workers grabbing eggs before their shifts, nurses getting off night duty, the usual mix of Chicago's working class. I'd barely touched my scrambled eggs. My stomach was twisted in knots. Rachel Thompson slid into the booth across from me. She was in street clothes now, jeans and a Northwestern sweatshirt. She looked tired, like she'd been up all night. She probably had. Thank you for meeting me, I sadly said. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. Rachel ordered coffee from the passing waitress, then turned those intelligent eyes on me. Did you check the camera? I did. Then you know. I know my daughter let her husband break her leg to file a fraudulent insurance claim against me. The words tasted like ash. What I don't know is why you helped me. You don't know me. You risked your nursing license to give me that note. Rachel wrapped her hands around the coffee mug the waitress set down. Her fingers were long, graceful surgeon's hands. She was quiet for a moment, and I saw her wrestling with something. 15 years ago, she said finally, my father was a foreman on the Lakeshore Tower project, David Thompson. Do you remember him? The name hit me like an electric shock. David Thompson. Big guy always laughing. He had a tattoo of a bear on his forearm. Rachel smiled sad and sweet. That's him. Chicago Bears fan since he was 6 years old. There was an accident. The memory came flooding back. The scaffolding collapsed on the east side. 3 workers fell. Your father, he saved 2 of them, pushed them clear before the platform gave way, and crushed his spine in the process. Rachel's voice was steady, but I could hear the old pain underneath. The construction company claimed it was operator error. They denied his workers' compensation claim, said he'd been negligent, that he'd violated safety protocols. I remembered being furious. I'd filed a dozen safety complaints about that scaffolding company. I'd told the general contractor their equipment wasn't up to code. But I was just a consultant. Nobody listened to women engineers, especially not back then. Your family was going to lose everything, I said slowly. Rachel nodded. We were packing boxes. Mom was working 3 jobs. I was in community college about to drop out to help with bills. Dad needed surgery, a spinal fusion that might let him walk again, but insurance wouldn't cover it because they classified the accident as his fault. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo, a younger version of herself, maybe 23, standing next to a man in a wheelchair. He was smiling despite the pain in his eyes. And then one day an envelope showed up in our mailbox. No return address, just a cashier's check for $60,000. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. Dad knew it was you, Rachel continued. He said you were the only person from the company who'd visited him in the hospital, the only one who looked him in the eye and said you were sorry, the only one who'd filed those safety reports even when everyone ignored you. I remembered selling my car, a 1967 Mustang that David and I had restored together piece by piece over 5 years. It had been our weekend project, our shared obsession. I'd loved that car, but when I'd seen David Thompson in that hospital bed, unable to move, unable to work, unable to provide for his family, the car had seemed like a stupid thing to hold on to. The money paid for the surgery, Rachel said. Dad walked again. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to work to live. And it paid for my nursing school. I graduated 4 years later, top of my class. She reached across the table and took my hand. You saved my family, Ms. Rodriguez. You didn't have to. You didn't even know us. But you saw someone in trouble and you helped. No questions asked. No credit needed. Tears were burning in my eyes. Rachel, you don't owe me. I don't believe in debts, she interrupted. I believe in paying it forward. When I saw Patrick Sullivan in that hospital room lying about how his wife fell downstairs, I knew something was wrong. And when I ran the insurance verification and saw it was your homeowner's policy he wanted to claim against, I knew it was wrong. You could lose your job for what you did. My dad almost lost his life because people chose profit over safety. I'm not going to stand by and watch someone abuse the system to hurt a good person. Rachel squeezed my hand. But there's something else you need to know. Something worse than the video. My heart dropped. What? Rachel pulled out a small digital voice recorder, the kind doctors use for dictating notes. The intercom system in room 402 is old, she explained. Sometimes the call button sticks. It leaves an open line to the nurses' station. Usually we just hear the TV. But yesterday afternoon, about 2 hours after you left, the light came on. She set the recorder on the table between us. I was at the desk. I heard them talking. And Nancy, her voice dropped to almost a whisper, I think they're planning to kill you. The diner noise faded to white noise. The clatter of plates, the hiss of the grill, the chatter of other customers, it all became distant, muffled. Play it, I said. Rachel pressed play. Static at first. Then Patrick's voice, clear and sharp. Stop whining about the pain meds, Sharon. You need to be alert when the old lady comes back. We need that signature. Sharon's voice slurred and weak. She knows something, Patrick. Did you see how she looked at me? She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. She doesn't know anything. She's just feeling guilty. That's the whole point. Guilty people are easy to manipulate. They want to fix things to make up for their mistakes. She'll sign the power of attorney. She'll give us access to the accounts. And then what? She's not stupid. She'll figure it out when the money starts disappearing. A pause. Long enough that I thought the recording had ended. Then Patrick's voice, colder than I'd ever heard it. She won't figure out anything, Sharon. By the time the money's gone, she'll be gone too. What are you talking about? Think about it. Your mother is 68 years old. She has a heart condition. She takes warfarin beta blockers, blood thinners. You know how dangerous those medications are, right? How easy it is to overdose. Sharon's voice was barely audible. Patrick, no. Number one, we can't. Old people die in their sleep all the time, especially when they're stressed. Especially when they accidentally take too much medication. Or the wrong medication. Or when someone who has access to their house helps them take the right amount of the wrong thing. My hands were shaking so badly the coffee cup clattered against the saucer. The coroner rules it accidental death, natural causes. No autopsy, why would there be? She's old, she has health problems, she's been under stress because her daughter got hurt. It's tragic. It's sad. And we're the sole beneficiaries. $2 million in life insurance, plus the house, plus the investment accounts. I can't do this. Patrick, I can't kill my mother. You won't have to do anything. I'll handle it. You just need to keep her feeling guilty. Keep her focused on making things right. By the end of the week, all of this is over. We're free. Lily is safe. And your mother, she won't suffer. I promise. She'll just go to sleep and not wake up. Sharon was crying now, desperate broken sobs. Please, Patrick, please don't make me do this. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Jesus Christ, Sharon, wake up. The loan sharks aren't going to wait. Sal's guys already came by the house. They know where Lily goes to school. They know her schedule. You want them to grab her off the playground. You want them to send us pieces of her until we pay. No, God, no. Then stop crying and start thinking. Your mother lived a good life. She's old. She's alone. She's been alone since your dad died. What does she have to live for? But Lily, our baby girl, she has her whole life ahead of her. Who's more important, Sharon, your mother or your daughter? The recording ended with a click. I stared at the device. The shaking had spread from my hands to my whole body. I couldn't feel my face, couldn't feel my fingers. Ms. Rodriguez, Rachel's voice seemed to come from far away. Nancy, are you okay? Do you need me to call someone? I tried to speak. My throat was closed. They were going to kill me. Not just steal from me, not just defraud me, murder me. Patrick was planning to sneak into my house and poison me with my own medications, make it look like an accident, a confused old woman who took too many pills. And my daughter, my baby girl, knew about it. Nancy, breathe. You need to breathe. Rachel was out of her seat, kneeling next to me, her hands on my shoulders. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. Good. The diner had gotten very quiet. People were staring. The waitress hovered nearby, concerned. I'm okay, I managed. My voice didn't sound like mine. I'm okay. Like hell you are. Rachel helped me to my feet. She threw $20 on the table and guided me outside into the cool morning air. I leaned against the brick wall of the diner, gulping oxygen. The Chicago morning was crisp clean. The sun was shining. Traffic moved past on the street. The world was going on like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. We need to go to the police, Rachel said urgently. Right now. This is conspiracy to commit murder. You can't go home. You can't go anywhere near them. No. What, babe? I straightened up. The shaking was stopping. The engineer in me was taking over, shutting down the emotion, focusing on the problem. If we go to the police now with just this recording, Patrick will say it was just talk. Venting, dark humor between a stressed couple. His lawyer will tear it apart. But I need him to act on it, I said. I need him to actually try, on camera, with witnesses, with proof that can't be explained away. Rachel stared at me. You want to let him try to kill you? I want to let him think he's trying to kill me. I pulled out my phone. I have a friend, Police Chief Robert Miller. We went to high school together. I built his deck, his kid's treehouse. He owes me about 100 favors. Nancy, this is insane. This is the only way to save my daughter. I looked Rachel in the eyes. Right now, Sharon thinks Patrick is protecting her, saving her. She's terrified of the loan sharks. She's terrified of losing Lily. She thinks this is the only option. But if I can show her, if she can see with her own eyes that Patrick isn't trying to save her, he's trying to use her, then maybe she'll have the strength to walk away. Or he actually kills you, and she has to live with that for the rest of her life. He won't kill me, because I'll be ready, because I'll have backup, because I spent 45 years calculating structural loads and risk factors. I started walking to my truck. Trust me, Rachel, I know how to build a trap that won't fail. Rachel caught up with me. You're really going to do this. I'm really going to do this. She shook her head, but there was a reluctant admiration in her eyes. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the craziest. Can it be both? Despite everything, she laughed. Then her face got serious. I'm coming with you when you talk to the police chief. I'm the one who recorded this. I need to be there. Okay. And Nancy, Rachel touched my arm. Thank you for what you did for my dad. For my family. I never got to say that. I covered her hand with mine. You just did. Police Chief Robert Miller's office was on the 3rd floor of the district station on Western Avenue. The building smelled like old coffee and institutional cleaning solution. Bob saw me through this glass window of his office and was on his feet immediately. He met us at the door, his face creased with concern. Nancy, what's wrong? You sounded... He stopped when he saw Rachel. Who's this? Rachel Thompson, the nurse who saved my life. Can we come in? Bob ushered us into his office and closed the door. He was 60 years old, gray at the temples with the kind of weathered face that came from 30 years of police work. But his eyes were kind. They'd always been kind. I handed him my phone with the video queued up. Watch this first, then we'll play the audio. Bob sat down heavily in his chair and pressed play. I watched his face as he absorbed what he was seeing. The color drained from his cheeks, his jaw set in that hard line that meant he was furious. When the video ended, Rachel played the audio recording. By the time it finished, Bob had his hands over his face. Jesus Christ, Nancy. His voice was muffled. This is attempted murder. Conspiracy. He looked up at me. I can have a squad car at the hospital in 10 minutes. We can arrest Patrick right now. No. What do you mean, no? I sat down across from him. Bob, what happens if you arrest him right now? Patrick gets a lawyer. The lawyer claims the video was a domestic dispute that got out of hand. Claims the audio was just stress talking, venting, not actual planning. Sharon stands by her husband. And maybe the DA gets a conviction for insurance fraud. But the murder conspiracy, that's just words on a tape. It's evidence. It's words, I said firmly. And a good defense attorney will create reasonable doubt. But if we catch him in the act, if we catch him actually trying to poison me, there's no doubt. There's no defense. Bob leaned back in his chair. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to create a controlled environment where Patrick reveals his true intentions, with multiple witnesses, multiple cameras, body cams, room cams, everything admissible in court. Nancy, if something goes wrong, then you'll be there. Right, I met his eyes. Bob, you owe me. Remember when your son broke his arm falling off that treehouse I built? Remember who convinced your wife it wasn't the treehouse's fault, it was teenage stupidity? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Kyle still has a scar from that. And remember who paid for the emergency room visit? You didn't have to do that. And you don't have to help me now. But I'm asking anyway. I leaned forward. Patrick Sullivan is a predator. He's abused my daughter financially, psychologically, and now he's planning to murder me to cover his tracks. If we do this right, we don't just save me. We save Sharon. We get her away from him. We give her a chance to see the truth. Bob was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out a notepad. Okay, tell me your plan. I spent the next hour laying it out. The engineer in me had already calculated every angle, every risk factor, every potential failure point. I'm going to call Patrick, I explained. I'm going to tell him I have the power of attorney signed, that I'm too tired to drive back to the hospital tonight. I'll invite him over for dinner. I'll say I made Sharon's favorite soup. Soup, Bob said flatly. You're going to offer him liquid. Liquid is easy to poison. It's what he'll expect. I'll make it as easy as possible for him. And then we wire the house. Cameras in every room, but especially the kitchen. I wear a body mic. Your team is in the garage and the pantry. When Patrick makes his move, when he actually tries to poison the soup, you come in. Bob wrote it all down. We'll need a warrant for the wire. You have probable cause. The audio recording. The audio recording from an intercom system that may or may not be legal to record. I can testify that I heard a credible threat against my life, Rachel interjected. I reported it to law enforcement immediately. That's not only legal, it's required under mandatory reporting laws. Bob looked at her with new respect. You've done this before. My ex-husband was a piece of work. I learned a lot about domestic violence law. Rachel's voice was matter-of-fact. This qualifies. Patrick Sullivan is using financial control and threats to coerce Sharon Rodriguez. That's domestic abuse. And now he's escalating to murder. Nancy's not just bait, she's the next victim in a pattern of escalating violence. Okay, Bob stood up. I need to brief my team. Nancy, you go home. Don't call Patrick yet. I need time to get the warrant, get the equipment set up. Can you give me 4 hours? I can give you until 6 p.m. Then I need to make the call. If I wait too long, Patrick will get suspicious. 6 p.m. Okay. Bob walked around the desk and put his hands on my shoulders. Nancy, promise me you'll follow my lead on this. If I say abort, we abort. If I say get out, you get out. I promise. I'm serious. I'm not losing you. I already lost David. I'm not losing you too. The emotion in his voice made my throat tight. You won't lose me, Bobby. I'm too stubborn to die. At 6 o'clock that evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my phone in my hand. The house was wired like a Hollywood production. Cameras hidden in the crown, molding in the picture frames and the smoke detector. A technical team from the Chicago PD had spent 2 hours making my home into a surveillance net. Bob sat across from me, his own equipment spread out on my dining room table. Monitors showing every angle of the kitchen. Audio levels, recording indicators. In my garage, a 4-man tactical team waited in silence. I was wearing a wire taped to my chest under my blouse. It itched. I couldn't stop thinking about it. You don't have to do this, Bob said quietly. Even now, we can still just arrest him. And let him manipulate Sharon from jail. Let him convince her he's the victim. I shook my head. No, she needs to see the truth, all of it. I dialed Patrick's number. He answered on the second ring. Nancy, I've been trying to reach you all day. Where have you been? Sharon's been worried sick. The concern in his voice was perfect. If I didn't know better, I'd believe it. I'm sorry, Patrick. I went home last night and I couldn't do it. I couldn't drive back. I've been so exhausted, so upset about Sharon. It's okay, Mom. Mom. He'd never called me that before. I understand this has been traumatic for everyone, but did you find the insurance policy? I did, and I signed the power of attorney too. Silence. Then, you did. I trust you, Patrick. I trust you to take care of Sharon. I know I haven't always been supportive of your marriage, but you've been there for her. You've been strong when I've been weak. I felt sick saying the words, but I watched Bob give me a thumbs up. Patrick was taking the bait. That means a lot, Nancy. Really. His voice was warm now, excited. So the papers are signed. That's wonderful. The doctors can schedule Sharon's surgery first thing tomorrow if we file tonight. That's the thing, I said, letting my voice shake a little. I can't drive back to the hospital tonight. I'm so tired, Patrick. My heart has been racing all day. I think the stress is getting to me. Oh no. Are you okay? Should I call a doctor? No, I just need rest, but I thought maybe you could come here. Pick up the papers and I made chicken soup. That soup Sharon loves with the rosemary. I made way too much. I thought maybe you could have dinner with me before you go back to the hospital. Another pause. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating. You want me to come to your house tonight? If it's not too much trouble, I don't want to be alone. And I want to talk to you about setting up a trust fund for Lily. For Sharon's medical bills, for all of it. I've been thinking about my will, Patrick. About making sure you and Sharon are taken care of. The silence stretched out. 5 seconds. 10. Then, of course, Nancy, I'd love to come over. What time? Is 7:30 okay? That gives me time to heat up the soup. 7:30 is perfect. Thank you, Mom. This really means a lot. He hung up. I set down the phone. My hands were trembling. He's coming, Bob said. He was already on his radio coordinating with the team. Tactical, we have confirmation. Target ETA 7:30. All units maintain position. Nancy, are you okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. The next 90 minutes felt like 90 years. I actually made the soup. Chicken, vegetables, rosemary, the recipe I'd made for Sharon since she was a little girl. It felt surreal standing at my stove stirring soup that might be used as a murder weapon. Bob's team did final checks. Tested the cameras, tested the audio, made sure every angle was covered. At 7:15, Bob came to the kitchen. Nancy, last chance. We can call this off. No. If he tries something, if he actually tries to poison you, then you'll stop him. That's why you're here. What if we don't see it in time? What if... I touched his arm. Bob, I spent 45 years building structures that could withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and human stupidity. Trust me, I know how to build something that won't fail. At 7:28, headlights swept across my front window. Patrick was here. The doorbell rang at exactly 7:30. Patrick was nothing if not punctual. I smoothed down my blouse carefully so I didn't disturb the wire and went to answer it. Patrick stood on my doorstep holding a bouquet of carnations. Grocery store flowers probably grabbed on the way. He was wearing slacks and a button-down shirt. No tie. Casual concern. Nancy, he stepped inside and hugged me. I went rigid. His cologne was too strong, cloying. You look exhausted. Are you sure you're feeling okay? Just tired. Come in. I led him to the kitchen. The soup was simmering on the stove. The table was set for two. The folder with the power of attorney sat conspicuously next to the salt and pepper. Patrick's eyes went to it immediately. Is that all signed? You can look through it while we eat. I ladled soup into 2 bowls. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Sit down. You must be starving. Patrick sat, but he pulled the folder toward him first. I watched him scan the documents. Watched his eyes light up when he saw my signature. This is perfect, Nancy. This is exactly what we need. Sharon's going to be so relieved. How is she? I brought the bowls to the table, set one in front of him, one at my place. In pain. But the doctors are managing it. She keeps asking about you. Tell her I love her. Tell her everything's going to be okay. I sat down, picked up my spoon, didn't eat, just stirred the soup watching the vegetables swirl. Patrick picked up his spoon, stopped. Aren't you going to eat? I'm not very hungry. You go ahead. Nancy, you need to keep your strength up. I will. My stomach's been upset all day. Patrick set down his spoon. You know you should really eat something. This soup smells amazing, and you made it special right for Sharon. For both of you. He smiled. Warm, genuine, the perfect son-in-law. Then I insist we eat together. Come on, just a few bites. He picked up his spoon again, took a small sip of soup, made appreciative noises. I did the same. The soup was good. It tasted like memories, like Sunday dinners when Sharon was little, like David telling jokes that made milk come out of her nose from laughing. We ate in silence for a moment. Then I stood up. Oh, I forgot napkins. Let me grab some. I turned my back to Patrick, walked to the counter, reached for the paper towel holder, and watched in the decorative mirror hanging above the stove. Patrick's hand moved fast, into his jacket pocket, out with something small, a vial. His eyes flickered to my back, checking. I stood very still, my hand on the paper towels, watching in the mirror. Patrick uncapped the vial. His hand moved toward my bowl of soup. What are you doing? I spun around. Fast, aggressive. Patrick jerked back his hand, closing around the vial. What, nothing. I saw you in the mirror. My voice was loud, clear, for the recording, for the wire. You put something in your hand. What is it? Nancy, I don't know what you're talking about. Show me your hand. You're being paranoid. Show me your hand. Patrick stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. You're clearly not well. You're seeing things. Am I? I moved toward him. Am I seeing things, or am I seeing you try to poison me? His face changed. The mask slipped, just for a second. But I saw it. The cold calculation, the predator evaluating prey. You're confused, he said, his voice taking on a soothing quality, gaslighting. You're old, you're stressed, you're imagining. I'm not imagining the vial in your hand. Patrick's fingers tightened. There is no vial. Then open your hand. Nancy, open it or I'm calling the police right now. We stared at each other. The kitchen was silent except for the soft bubbling of soup on the stove. Then Patrick smiled. It was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. You stupid old bitch, he said softly. You actually think you can threaten me? He opened his hand. The vial was clear glass, liquid inside. You want to know what this is? He held it up. It's concentrated insulin, enough to drop your blood sugar so fast you'd be in a coma before 911 could get here. And you know what the best part is? You have diabetes medications in your cabinet. The coroner would assume you got confused, mixed up your meds, accidental overdose. My blood ran cold. You're insane, I whispered. I'm practical. You have $2 million that my wife and I need. You're old. You're alone. Nobody would question it. Sharon would never. Sharon will do what I tell her. Patrick's voice was hard. She already broke her own leg for me. You think she won't mourn her mother and cash the check? He moved toward me. I backed up against the counter. It'll be quick, he said. Just a little prick, like a bee sting. Then you'll get sleepy. That's all. You'll go to sleep and you won't wake up. Peaceful. Easy. His hand reached for my arm. Now, I screamed. The pantry door exploded outward. Bob Miller came through first, gun drawn, 2 officers behind him. Police, drop it, hands up. Patrick spun the vial still in his hand. What the? Drop the vial now! The garage door burst open. 4 more officers, tactical gear weapons raised. Patrick looked around wildly, trapped, cornered. He looked at me, at the wire visible at my collar where my blouse had shifted. You set me up, he breathed. You fucking set me up. I gave you the opportunity, I said quietly. You chose to take it. Patrick's hand clenched around the vial. For a second I thought he might throw it, but then Bob was there, twisting his arm behind his back, and the vial fell to the floor. It shattered. Clear liquid spread across my kitchen tile. Patrick Sullivan, you're under arrest for attempted murder conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and elder abuse. Bob's voice was hard as iron as he cuffed Patrick's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent." Patrick wasn't listening. He was staring at me with pure hatred. "Sharon will never forgive you," he spat. "She'll hate you for this. You just destroyed your own daughter's life." I looked at him. This man who'd manipulated my baby girl, who'd trapped her in debt and fear, who'd made her break her own leg. "No," I said. "I just saved it." They dragged him out. He was screaming, threatening, promising lawyers and lawsuits and revenge. The door closed behind them. The kitchen was silent except for my ragged breathing. Bob came back in. "Nancy, you okay?" I looked at the shattered vial on my floor, the evidence bag one of the officers was sealing it into. "He was really going to do it," I said. "He was really going to kill me." "Yeah, he was." Bob put a hand on my shoulder. "But he didn't. You're safe. It's over." "It's not over." I looked at him. "Sharon's still at the hospital. She doesn't know. She's going to wake up tomorrow expecting Patrick, and instead she's going to find out her husband is in jail for trying to murder her mother." I closed my eyes. "I need to go to her. I need to be the one to tell her. Nancy, she's my daughter Bob. I need to be there when her world falls apart." Bob was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, but I'm coming with you, and we're bringing proof. Video, audio, everything. She needs to see the truth." I grabbed my purse, my car keys. The drive to Chicago Med felt longer than it should have. Every red light was an eternity. Every green light passed too fast. Bob drove. I was shaking too hard to hold the wheel steady. In my lap, I clutched a tablet loaded with the video evidence. The bat coming down. Patrick's cold voice describing how he'd poison me. The vial in his hand. "What if she doesn't believe me?" I asked the windshield. Bob glanced over. "She'll believe you. The evidence doesn't lie. Evidence doesn't matter if she's not ready to see it. If she's not ready to accept what Patrick is. Nancy, your daughter just found out her husband tried to murder you. That's not something you can rationalize away. You'd be surprised what people can rationalize when they're scared enough." We pulled into the hospital parking garage. It was after 9 p.m. now. Visiting hours were technically over, but Bob flashed his badge and the security guard waved us through. The elevator ride to the 4th floor was silent. I caught my reflection in the polished steel doors. I looked old, tired. The wire had left a red mark on my chest where they'd pulled it off. My hair was a mess. I looked like a woman who'd just been almost murdered by her son-in-law. Because I was. The hallway was quiet. Most patients were asleep. The nurse's station was manned by a young man I didn't recognize. He looked up as we approached. "I'm sorry visiting hours ended at 8. Bob showed his badge again. "Police business, room 402. The nurse's eyes widened. "Is everything okay? Should I call?" "No need. Just routine follow-up on an incident." We walked past him before he could ask more questions. I could feel him watching us. At Sharon's door, I stopped. My hand hovered over the handle. "I can go in first," Bob offered. "Break the news officially." "No," I took a breath. "She's my daughter. I need to do this." I pushed open the door. Sharon was awake, propped up in bed with her phone in her hand. She looked up as I entered, and her face lit up with relief. "Mom, thank God. I've been calling you all day. Where have you been? Patrick said he was going to get the papers from you hours ago, but he never came back. I've been so worried." She stopped. Her eyes went to Bob in his uniform behind me, then back to my face. "Mom, what's wrong?" "What happened?" I walked to her bedside, set the tablet down on the tray table, pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "Sharon, honey, I need you to listen to me, and I need you to stay calm. You're scaring me. Where's Patrick? Is he okay?" The concern in her voice was genuine. She really did love him, or thought she did. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference when you're trapped. "Patrick's been arrested." The color drained from Sharon's face. "What? No. No, that's not why. What did he do?" "He tried to kill me, Sharon." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sharon stared at me, blinked, shook her head. "That's insane. That's Mom. What are you talking about? Patrick wouldn't." "He came to my house tonight with a vial of concentrated insulin. He tried to put it in my soup. I had police there. They witnessed it. They have him in custody right now." "No." Sharon's voice was getting higher. "No, you're lying. You never liked him. You're trying to break us up. You set him up. I didn't set him up. I picked up the tablet. I gave him an opportunity to show his true nature, and he did. I turned the screen toward her, pressed play on the video from my kitchen. Sharon watched. I saw her face change as she heard Patrick's voice. You stupid old bitch. As she saw the vial, as she heard him describe exactly how he'd planned to kill me. When it ended, she was shaking her head. This isn't real. This is edited. You manipulated him, you— Sharon, stop. My voice was firm. I know you're scared. I know you want to believe he's not this person. But there's more. I pulled up the second video, the one from their basement camera. What is that? Security footage from your house, from 2 nights ago, 11:47 p.m. I pressed play. Sharon watched herself sit on the coffee table, watched herself drink whiskey, watched Patrick explain the plan, watched the bat come down on her own leg. She went white, then gray, then green. I'm going to be sick. Bob grabbed the basin from the bathroom just in time. Sharon vomited violently, her whole body heaving. When she was done, she collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. You knew, she whispered. This whole time you knew. I found out yesterday, after Rachel gave me a note telling me to check the cameras. Rachel— Sharon's eyes were unfocused. The nurse— She heard something, on the intercom. Do you want to hear it? No. God, no. I can't. I played it anyway. Because she needed to hear it. She needed to hear Patrick's voice planning my murder in that cold, calculating tone. When it finished, Sharon was sobbing, deep, wrenching sobs that shook the bed. He said he'd kill Lily. He said the loan sharks knew where she went to school. He said if I didn't do it, they'd hurt her. I know, baby. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to hurt you. But he said he kept saying Sharon. I took her hand. It was ice cold. Look at me. She did, her eyes red and swollen. Do you know where Patrick got the idea for the loan sharks? I asked gently. She shook her head. There are no loan sharks, Sharon. Or if there are, they're not after you. Patrick made up the threats. He invented the danger to Lily. He needed you scared enough to do what he wanted. But the debts are real. I've seen the letters. The debts are real. Patrick's gambling problem is real. But the threats, those were manufactured to control you. Sharon stared at me, processing. How do you know? Bob stepped forward. Because we've been investigating Patrick Sullivan for 3 months. He's on the FBI's watch list for financial fraud. He's done this before, Mrs. Sullivan. He marries women with wealthy parents, isolates them, runs up debts in their name, then orchestrates accidents or deaths to cash in on insurance and inheritance. What? Sharon's voice was barely audible. You're not his first wife, Bob continued. You're his third. The first wife's father died of an accidental prescription overdose 4 years ago. The second wife's mother fell downstairs at her house, stairs that had been tampered with. Both deaths were ruled accidental at the time, but now we're reopening the cases. Sharon looked like she'd been hit. I'm not his first wife. No, he's a professional con artist, Sharon. Everything about your marriage, the debt, the fear, the isolation, it was all designed to trap you, to make you dependent on him, to make you do things you'd never normally do. Sharon was silent for a long moment. Then she said quietly, I have recordings. Both Bob and I looked at her sharply. What? I asked. Sharon reached under her pillow with a shaking hand, pulled out her phone. I've been recording him for 6 months, ever since the first time he hit me. The room went very still. He hit you? My voice came out as a whisper. Just once. He claimed it was an accident, that he didn't mean to, that he was stressed about money and I'd pushed his buttons. Sharon's voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of someone who'd told herself lies so many times they'd stopped sounding like lies. But after that I started recording, just in case, just so I'd have proof if something happened. She unlocked her phone with trembling fingers, navigated to a hidden folder. There are 43 recordings here. Some are just arguments, but some— She looked up at me. Some are him threatening me, threatening Lily, describing what would happen if I didn't cooperate, if I went to the police, if I told you. Bob took the phone carefully, started scrolling through the files. His jaw got tighter with each one. Sharon, this is evidence of domestic violence, coercion, financial abuse. Why didn't you come forward? Because he told me no one would believe me, that he'd say I was an unfit mother, that he'd take Lily and I'd never see her again. Sharon's voice broke. And I believed him, because by then I didn't trust my own judgment anymore. I didn't trust anything. I reached out and took my daughter's face in my hands. Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see. I should have noticed. I should have... How could you... Sharon's tears were falling freely now. I hid it so well. I smiled. I pretended everything was fine. I pushed you away when you asked questions. I was so ashamed, Mom. So ashamed that I'd let this happen. That I'd married this monster. It's not your fault. I broke my own leg. I let him convince me to commit fraud against you. How is that not my fault? Because you were under duress. Bob's voice was firm. Sharon, coercion under threat of violence negates consent, legally and morally. You were a victim being forced to participate in a crime. That's very different from being a willing participant. Sharon looked at him. So I won't go to jail. Not if you cooperate. Not if you testify against Patrick. The DA will offer you immunity in exchange for your testimony in these recordings. But I did commit fraud. I did plan to take Mom's insurance money. Under threat and coercion, Bob repeated. Sharon Patrick Sullivan is the primary actor here. You were his tool, his weapon. And weapons don't go to jail. The person wielding them does. Sharon looked at me. Do you forgive me? The question broke my heart. Oh, baby. I climbed onto the bed beside her, carefully avoiding her broken leg, and wrapped my arms around her. There's nothing to forgive. You were trying to survive. You were trying to protect Lily. I understand. I understand completely. Sharon clung to me and sobbed like she was 5 years old again, like the time she'd fallen off her bike and scraped up her knees, like the time she'd failed her first engineering exam and thought her world was ending. But this time her world really had ended, and I was going to help her build a new one. Over the next 2 weeks, our lives became a blur of lawyers, police interviews, and federal agents. Patrick was denied bail. The attempted murder charge, combined with the video evidence and the FBI's investigation into his pattern of fraud, made him too much of a flight risk. He sat in Cook County Jail while his public defender tried desperately to craft a defense. Sharon was released from the hospital after her surgery. She came home to my house. Her house, the one I'd bought her, was a crime scene being combed through by investigators looking for more evidence. She moved into her old childhood bedroom. The walls still had posters from her high school years. A Nirvana poster, a diagram of Chicago's famous buildings, a photo of her and her father at her high school graduation. She cried herself to sleep most nights. I could hear her through the walls. During the days, she met with the district attorney, with the FBI, with a therapist who specialized in domestic violence survivors. And slowly, piece by piece, we built the case against Patrick Sullivan. 3 weeks after Patrick's arrest, FBI agent Melissa Torres sat in my living room with a file folder that looked like it weighed 10 pounds. Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted to update you on the investigation. She was a sharp woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. What Patrick tried to do to you, it's not an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern we've been tracking for 6 years. Sharon, sitting next to me on the couch, went pale. 6 years? Patrick Sullivan isn't his real name. He was born Kevin Patrick Mallory. He's been using variations of his middle and last names to create new identities. Agent Torres opened the folder. His first wife was Amanda Brennan. Her father, Richard Brennan, died of an accidental overdose in 2019. Mr. Brennan was 73 and had early-stage dementia. The coroner ruled it accidental. He'd allegedly confused his medications. But you don't think it was accidental, I said. Not anymore. After your case broke, we exhumed Richard Brennan's body. Toxicology shows levels of insulin in his system that couldn't be explained by his medical history. He wasn't diabetic. Sharon made a small sound. I took her hand. Patrick or Kevin collected a $1.8 million inheritance. Amanda divorced him 6 months later when she discovered he'd gambled most of it away, but by then he'd already moved on. Agent Torres pulled out another photo. A woman in her early 30s, blonde, smiling at the camera. Wife number 2, Jessica Halloway. Her mother, Margaret, died in 2021 from injuries sustained in a fall down the basement stairs of her home. The stairs had been recently reinforced by Jessica's husband, Patrick, or Kevin. He was using the name Patrick Halloway at the time. Jesus Christ, I breathed. The coroner ruled it accidental. But when we examined the construction records, we found something interesting. The steel brackets Patrick installed, they were designed to fail under a certain weight threshold. He'd essentially created a trap disguised as a safety feature. I felt sick. That was exactly what I'd been afraid of when I'd heard about Sharon's fall. The engineer in me had known something was wrong with that story. "How much did he get from that?" Sharon asked quietly. $1.2 million. Life insurance plus the estate. Jessica left him shortly after, but again most of the money was already gone. Gambling debts, bad investments. Kevin has a compulsive spending problem. "So he found me," Sharon whispered. "Another woman with a wealthy parent." "We believe so, yes. Kevin is what we call a professional predator. He specifically targets women from wealthy families. He uses charm manipulation, and when that doesn't work, coercion and violence. He isolates them from their support systems. He creates financial crises to justify his crimes. And then he cashes in." Agent Torres looked at me with something like admiration. "You're the first one who saw through him. The first one who had the resources and the knowledge to fight back. If you hadn't installed those cameras, if you hadn't been an engineer who understood how structures fail, he would have gotten away with it." Again, the weight of that settled over the room. "How many people has he killed?" I asked. "We're investigating 3 deaths. 2 we can prove. Richard Brennan and Margaret Halloway. The third is a man named Thomas Timothy Margaret's husband. He died of a heart attack 6 months after Margaret's death. But given Patrick's methods using medications creating accidents, we're looking into it." Sharon was shaking. "I almost helped him kill you." "But you didn't," I said firmly. "And now he's going to pay for what he's done. To all of them. To you. To me." Agent Torres nodded. "With your testimony, Sharon, we can make this a federal case. Multiple counts of murder, attempted murder, wire fraud, identity theft. Kevin Patrick Mallory is looking at life in prison without parole. But we need you to be strong. We need you to testify." Sharon looked at me. "Will you be there in court? Every single day," I promised. "I'll be right there beside you." The trial was set for 6 months later. That gave us time to heal, time to prepare, time for Sharon to get her life back together. She enrolled in therapy 3 times a week. PTSD from the domestic abuse, anxiety, depression. The therapist said it would take time, maybe years, to fully process what she'd been through. But Sharon was stronger than she thought. She started attending domestic violence support groups. She shared her story. And slowly, she started to believe that she wasn't alone, that she wasn't weak, that she'd been trapped by an expert manipulator, and escaping made her brave, not broken. Lily came home from Patrick's parents' house. They'd been horrified to learn what their son had done. They apologized profusely, saying they'd always known Kevin. They still called him Kevin, was troubled, but they'd never imagined this. Lily thankfully was young enough that she didn't fully understand. She knew Daddy was away for a while. She knew Mommy had been hurt. But she bounced back with the resilience of childhood. She called me abuela now, even though we weren't Hispanic. It made Sharon laugh a real laugh for the first time in months. We moved into a smaller condo in Lincoln Park. I'd sold my house, too many bad memories, too many crime scene markers. Sharon sold the Oak Park house to pay off the legitimate debts. We downsized together, mother and daughter, starting over. James Caldwell handled the financial side. He set up a trust for Lily. He dissolved the fraudulent mortgage. He made sure that every penny Patrick had stolen was documented for the restitution phase of the trial. Rachel Thompson came by once a week for dinner. She and Sharon formed an unlikely friendship, 2 survivors of different kinds of abuse helping each other heal. And I started painting again. David and I used to paint together on Sundays. Watercolors, nothing fancy, but after he died I'd put the brushes away. Now I found myself pulling them out, painting Chicago skylines from memory, painting the buildings I'd helped design, painting the structural beauty of steel and concrete. Sharon would watch me sometimes. "You should sell these, Mom. They're really good." "Maybe," I'd say. But I didn't paint them to sell. I painted them to remember, to prove that things could be built and be beautiful, that not everything ended in collapse. The federal courthouse in downtown Chicago was an imposing building, granite and glass built to withstand time and weather. I'd always admired it from an engineering perspective. Now I was walking into it to watch my former son-in-law go on trial for trying to murder me. The media coverage was intense. Serial Black Widow Husband Caught by Engineer Mother-in-Law was the gentlest headline. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Cameras flashed as we pushed through. Sharon held my hand tightly. She was wearing a navy dress, conservative and professional. She'd cut her hair short, a symbolic fresh start. She looked beautiful and terrified. "I can't do this," she whispered as we approached the courtroom doors. "Yes, you can." "What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing and he gets off?" "Sharon." I stopped and turned her to face me. "You're going to get up there and tell the truth. That's all. The truth is enough." The courtroom was packed. I spotted Agent Torres in the front row, Jim Caldwell sitting with the prosecution team, Bob Miller in the back in uniform looking stern. And there at the defense table was Patrick. He'd lost weight in jail. His expensive suit hung loose on his frame. His hair was longer, grayer. He looked older, smaller, nothing like the charming man who'd convinced my daughter to marry him. When he saw us walk in, his eyes went cold. He leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer. Sharon flinched. I squeezed her hand. "He can't hurt you anymore," I murmured. We took our seats. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Patricia Brennan, no relation to Patrick's first victim, ironically took the bench. "All rise." The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution laid out the evidence methodically, clinically. Video of Patrick breaking Sharon's leg. Audio of Patrick planning my murder. The vial of insulin recovered from my kitchen floor. They brought in forensic accountants who traced Patrick's spending. Gambling. Luxury goods. Money disappearing as fast as he could steal it. They exhumed evidence from the previous cases. Richard Brennan's insulin levels. Margaret Halloway's faulty stares. The pattern of behavior that showed premeditation and intent. Patrick's defense attorney tried his best. He claimed Sharon had been the mastermind, that she'd manipulated Patrick into helping her, that I'd entrapped him, set him up, forced him into a situation where he had no choice but to play along. But then Sharon took the stand. The courtroom went silent as Sharon was sworn in. Her hand shook as she placed it on the Bible. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Diana Martinez, approached gently. "Mrs. Sullivan, can you tell us when you first met the defendant?" 4 years ago, at a real estate conference. He was charming, funny. He seemed safe." Sharon's voice was quiet but steady. "When did that change?" "About a year after we got married. He started making comments about my mother's money, about how she could afford to help us more, about how she was selfish for not giving us everything we wanted." "Did he become violent?" Sharon nodded. "The first time was 2 years ago. I'd questioned a charge on our credit card, $15,000 at a casino. He said I was being controlling, that I didn't trust him. He shoved me against the wall and told me to never question him again." Someone in the gallery gasped. Patrick's lawyer objected relevance. The judge overruled. "Did you tell anyone?" Diana asked. "No, I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault somehow." Diana walked Sharon through the timeline. The escalating abuse, the mounting debts, the threats against Lily. "Can you tell the court about the night of November 15th? Sharon took a shaky breath. "Patrick said we were out of time, that the loan sharks were coming, that they'd shown him photos of Lily at school, that if we didn't get money fast, they'd hurt her." "What did he propose?" "He said we should stage an accident at my mother's house, that I should fall down her stairs, that we'd file an insurance claim and get $500,000. "How did you feel about that?" "Terrified. I didn't want to do it. But he said it was the only way to save Lily. And I believed him." What happened that night? Sharon described it. The whiskey, the bat, the pain, every detail laid bare for the jury to see. Patrick's face was stone, but I saw his hands clench on the table. "And after that?" Diana prompted. "Patrick drove me to the hospital. He'd already practiced his story, how to sound panicked, what to say about the stairs. He told me to cry to look pathetic, to make my mother feel guilty." "Did it work?" "Yes." Sharon looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "My mom came to the hospital and she was devastated. She thought she'd failed me. And I let her think that. God, I let her think that." Sharon, did you know that Patrick was planning to kill your mother?" "No." Sharon's voice was firm now. "I swear I didn't know. Not until I heard the recording from the hospital intercom. He never told me that part. He just said we'd get the insurance money and everything would be okay. Diana played the audio in court. Patrick's voice describing how he'd poisoned me. The jury members' faces hardened. How did you feel when you heard that, like I was going to be sick, like I'd helped a monster, like I was the worst daughter in the world? But you weren't, were you? You were a victim, Patrick's lawyer objected. Leading. Sustained, the judge said mildly, but the point was made. Diana yielded the witness. Patrick's lawyer, a man named Gerald Stevens, approached Sharon with a sharp smile. Mrs. Sullivan, you claim you were coerced, but you never went to the police, did you? No. You never told your mother about the abuse? No. You never tried to leave your husband? I tried 3 times. He always found me, always convinced me to come back. And the threats against Lily. Alleged threats. Did you ever see these loan sharks? Did you ever meet them? Sharon hesitated. No, but... So you took your husband's word for it. You broke your own leg based on threats you never verified. I was scared, or you were greedy. Stevens's voice was hard. Your mother has money. You and your husband were drowning in debt. You saw an opportunity, and you took it. No. And when your plan went wrong, when your mother figured it out, you threw your husband under the bus. You created this victim narrative to save yourself. That's not true. Sharon's voice rose. I was trying to protect my daughter. Your daughter who conveniently you have sole custody of now, your daughter whose father is in jail giving you complete control. I watched Sharon start to crumble, watched her doubt creep in, watched the defense attorney do what Patrick had done, gaslight, manipulate, twist the truth. And I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up. Objection, I shouted. The judge's gavel cracked. Ms. Rodriguez, sit down, you're not counsel. She's telling the truth. I was on my feet, moving toward the stand. Jim tried to grab my arm, but I shook him off. I have evidence. Evidence the prosecution doesn't even know about. Judge Brennan looked furious. Ms. Rodriguez, you are in contempt. There's a voicemail. I pulled out my phone. Patrick left a voicemail on Sharon's phone 3 months ago. She didn't even know she had it. It was in her deleted folder. She recovered it last week. Diana Martinez hurried over. Your Honor, I need to review. I haven't heard this, Stevens protested. This is highly irregular. Play it, the judge commanded. Now. I handed my phone to the bailiff. He connected it to the courtroom speakers. Patrick's voice filled the room. Sharon, I swear to God, if you don't answer your phone right now, I'm going to Lily's school. I know her schedule. I know she has recess at 2:15. Those playground monitors can't watch all the kids. It would be so easy to just walk up and take her, to drive away before anyone noticed. And if I do that, Sharon, you'll never see her again. Not until you do exactly what I say. Call me back. Now. The courtroom was silent. Stevens sat down slowly. The judge looked at Patrick. Mr. Sullivan, do you have anything to say? Patrick's mask finally cracked. That bitch manipulated bailiff restrained the defendant. Patrick lunged. Not at Sharon. At me. He was screaming obscenities, hands reaching, trying to get across the courtroom. It took 3 bailiffs to hold him down. The jury watched it all. The deliberation took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder. Multiple counts of fraud. 2 counts of murder in the first degree for Richard Brennan and Margaret Halloway. Judge Brennan handed down the sentence without hesitation. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 60 years for the additional charges. Patrick was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming. You'll die alone, Nancy. You destroyed your daughter. She'll never forgive you. Sharon and I held each other as he was taken away. It's over, I whispered. Baby, it's over. But she was crying too hard to answer. 6 months after the trial, Sharon and I stood in the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Rachel Thompson Foundation. It was a small office space in a mixed-use building I'd helped design 15 years ago. The foundation offered 3 services scholarships for nursing students from low-income families, financial counseling for domestic violence survivors, and legal aid for elder abuse victims. Rachel stood beside us, beaming. Her father, David, was in the audience, walking with a cane, but walking. He'd flown in from Arizona, where he'd retired. I can't believe you did this, Rachel said, looking at the sign with her name on it. You saved my life, I told her. This seems like the least I could do. Sharon gave a short speech about the importance of speaking up, about recognizing the signs of abuse, about supporting survivors instead of judging them. Her voice didn't shake. She was stronger now. Not healed. Healing is a journey, not a destination, but stronger. Lily was there too, running around with Rachel's kids. She was 7 now, starting 2nd grade. She was in therapy, 2 age-appropriate counseling to help her process her father's absence. She still asked about him sometimes. When is Daddy coming home? Sharon had learned to answer honestly. Daddy made some very bad choices. He hurt people, so he has to stay away for a long time. Forever. Maybe forever, baby. Lily would get sad, but she'd bounce back. Kids are resilient like that. After the ceremony, we went to dinner at a small Italian place in Little Italy. Jim came. Bob came. Agent Torres came. Rachel and her family came. It felt like family. Not the family I'd been born into or married into, but the family I'd chosen. The family that had formed from the ashes of everything Patrick had tried to destroy. Speech, Bob called out, raising his wine glass. Everyone turned to me expectantly. I stood up, feeling self-conscious. I'm not good at speeches. You built skyscrapers, Jim said. You can handle a toast. I looked around the table, at these people who'd stood by me, who'd believed me, who'd helped me save my daughter. When I was young, I said slowly, my father taught me that good engineering isn't about building things that never break. It's about building things that fail safely, that protect people even when the structure collapses. I looked at Sharon. I thought I understood what that meant, but I was wrong. It's not just about buildings, it's about people. It's about families. My family broke, I continued. It collapsed under the weight of lies and manipulation and fear, but we didn't fail. We failed safely. We protected what mattered each other, the truth, justice. I raised my glass. So here's to structural integrity, not in steel and concrete, but in the people we choose to stand beside us. To the foundations we build not with money or blood, but with loyalty and courage and love. To foundations, everyone echoed. We drank, we ate, we laughed. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. My new condo in Lincoln Park has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. On clear days, I can see all the way to Michigan. I'm painting again. Not buildings this time, but people. Portraits of the family I've chosen. Rachel with her kids. Bob with his grandchildren. Jim at the poker table. We'd started our Friday night games again. And Sharon. Dozens of paintings of Sharon. Sharon laughing. Sharon with Lily. Sharon strong and whole and free. She'd started dating again. A woman named Elena, a teacher at Lily's school. It was slow, careful. Sharon was learning to trust again. She'd also gone back to school. Not engineering too many memories of dropping out to please Patrick, but social work. She wanted to help other survivors navigate the legal system, the therapy, the rebuilding. Mom, Sharon's voice called from the kitchen. Elena's here. Are you ready for dinner? 5 minutes, I called back. I was finishing a painting, not of a person this time, but of a building. The Millennium Spire, the last major project I'd worked on before retirement. 50 stories of steel and glass and human ambition. I'd painted it at sunset, the golden light making the windows glow like fire. At the bottom, I added a small plaque in careful letters. Structures fall. People endure. My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Torres. Kevin Patrick Mallory appealed. Appeal denied. He'll die in prison. Thought you'd want to know. I looked at the message for a long moment. Felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just a quiet acceptance. Patrick was gone from our lives. He couldn't hurt us anymore. I texted back, thank you for everything. Then I put the phone away and went to join my daughter for dinner. Because I'm Nancy Rodriguez. I'm 69 years old. I've built skyscrapers that touch the clouds and foundations that withstand hurricanes. But my greatest engineering achievement isn't a building. It's this: I tore down a toxic structure that was poisoning my family. I demolished it completely, carefully, with precision and control. And from the rubble, I built something new. Something stronger. Something that will last. Not a house made of lies and fear, but a home made of truth and courage. And that, I think, is the best foundation of all.